Okay, Parshas Ki tetse. Let's see what we can discover and what insights we can find. The very first pasuk, Ki tetse la milchama aloyvecha. When you go in a battle to war against your enemy, Unasano Hashem lokecha b'yadecha. Hashem will give the enemy into your hands. V'shavisa shivyo, and you will take hostages. You'll take captives. So for the pasuk it says you're going to go to war and you're going to win. Very straightforward, very simple. In contrast, there's another pasuk. This pasuk is in Parshas Bahaloscha. In Parshas Bahaloscha, it talks about making trumpets. Trumpets sound like the shofar. Now, when a person hears the shofar, what do you think of? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Slichot, doing teshuvah. What does it say over here in this pasuk? It says as follows. We talked about the Kisavo Milchama Ba'artzachem. When a battle, when a war will come into your country, Al Hatzar Hatzore Eschem, from an enemy that's oppressing you. V'areosem b'chatzotros, blow the shofar, blow the trumpets. V'nizkartem, and you'll be remembered high. Lifnei Hashem Elokeichem, before Hashem your God. Unoshatem me'oivechem, and Hashem will save you. So here it talks about that the enemy is attacking. The enemy has invaded. You first have to blow shofar. You have to do teshuvah. You have to call out to Hashem. Maybe Hashem will hear you, and then maybe you'll be saved. So here is a bunch of maybes. And here it seems it's a given. So the Meforshim, the Orachaim, different Meforshim, they talk about the war being a war against the Yetzer Hara. So he says, look at the difference, he says. Look at the difference. He says, here is talking about that a person doesn't wait till they do an Avedah. They go out and destroy the Yetzer Hara before the Yetzer Hara even comes. Right? So when you go out to war against your enemy, when you go out to war against the Yetzer Hara, means you're fighting the Yetzer Hara before the Yetzer Hara has won. Then you have a chance of winning without any questions. It's also written singular, Lashon Yachid. Unity, Achdus. When you go out, Ki tetse, singular. In Baaloscha, it's talking about the enemy is already inside. It means you didn't stop the Yetzer Hara from coming. The Yetzer Hara is already in. And it's plural. There's machlokas, there's a bunch of fighting within you. And then you have to remember Hashem, you have to do teshuvah, maybe then Hashem will save you. So Baaloscha is talking about when you already did the Averos. And the Yetzer Hara has already won the war. Now you want to fight back. It's a lot harder to fight back when the Yetzer Hara is already in. Ki tetse is talking about before the Yetzer Hara makes it in the first place. Now, what do you see? You see a beautiful woman in the battle. And he uses the word v'chashachtabo, you desire her. Desire her means you see something you want. You want it. You don't know if it's good for you. You're not even thinking about if it's good for you. You want it. Later on it says, it comes out that she's not good for you. Chayfetz means something that you enjoy having. Then you have to get rid of her. So the Malbim has something very interesting. The Malbim says there are times you want things. For example, let's say a person says, I want to drive the old style Cadillacs. Okay? What can you tell me about the old style Cadillacs? Number one, they use a lot of gas. And number two, the cars were big, very large. And you're living in Israel, in Yerushalayim. Have you ever been to Jerusalem? What can you tell me about the streets?
Very narrow.
Narrow.
Yeah.
So you want this Cadillac and you want to drive it around Jerusalem. What do you think is going to happen?
Problem.
Many problems. Number one, the gas you can't afford. And number two, half the streets you won't even be able to go down. Because if you're trying to go down the street and there's a car parked here, there's a car parked here, you're not going to go through.
Yeah.
You know, even the buses barely can get through. And when you're driving on those buses, you close your eyes and you pray, you hold your breath. So, so you may want it, but it's not good for you. The Torah says you go out to war, you see a beautiful girl, you want her. Okay, I understand what you want. You're not thinking with your head, you're thinking with your emotion. But is she good for you? Meaning, will she be a good mother if you have children? Will she be a good neighbor to your neighbors? Will she be able to cook food for you, shop for you, clean for you? You don't know anything about her. You see a beautiful girl, you want her. It's like a movie star. You see a movie star, you want her. But what happens to most marriages to movie stars? They end up in divorce. It doesn't work.
Only money works.
What?
Only money works.
Only the money works. You can't afford her. You know, you never know if this girl that you see so beautiful is going to go out shopping and spend $2,000 every time she goes shopping for clothes. You may not be able to afford her. So it says in the post, that's what the mom says, that you see a beautiful girl, you want her, but you haven't evaluated whether she's good for you or whether you're good for her. We don't know that yet. So it's simply a recipe. We call that a recipe for disaster. There's no chance here. The chances of this succeeding are very slim because she may not be good for you. And you have to understand that. Doesn't mean you're bad, doesn't mean she's bad, they just might be a good fit. A little bit later on in the pasuk, it says in Perek Chof Beis, pasuk Dalet, an interesting pasuk, and we talk about this. It says, Lo sire es chamor achicha asharo nofle madera. Don't see the mule or the cow, the ox of your friend. In Parshas Mishpatim, it uses the word your enemy. Here it uses the word your friend. Collapsing on the road. V'hisalamta mehem. Don't close your eyes. Hokem tokem imo. You should help him with the load. So let's explain this in modern day terms, okay? I'll explain to you how the Chofetz Chaim would say it. A person is driving a car on the highway, and what do you see? You see another Jew, assume it's a Jew, has a flat tire. You pull up behind and you say, you have a flat tire. Let me help you change it. The guy says, great, I'm so exhausted, pulls out a Coke, sits on the side, starts drinking his Coke and says, here are the keys to the trunk, the spare tire's in the trunk, thank you for changing my tire. What do you do under those circumstances?
Don't fix nothing.
You get back in your car and you go. It says if you see the mule or the cow of your car, of your friend, don't close your eyes, help him. So the Chofetz Chaim explains, helping him means with him.
Yeah, together.
Together. That's what it says. Imo means with him.
Yeah.
But if he says, you do the work and I'm going to sit back and throw back a six-pack, you say to the guy, enjoy your life. Leave me alone. Okay? It's very, very important to understand that. And I tell this to you all the time. I had a phone call where someone, said, asked a friend to help raise money. And the person calls him up and says, I raised $500. Guy says, that's nice, but I need $1,000. Okay. So the guy called me up, he felt bad, what should he do? He only had 500, the guy wants 1,000. So I said to him, you know what you do? You tell the guy you don't want the 500, no problem. I'll give it to somebody else.
Right.
Well, goodbye, enjoy your life. That means I don't have to do anything. You ask for help, I raised 500. Say thank you, be very thankful, and move on.
Yeah.
To call me back and say, no, I want 1,000, that doesn't say what the pasuk says. Okay? Give you another example. I had a case, a girl comes to me and says, I want to marry someone who's going to sit and learn for the next 5 years. I want to marry a Rosh Yeshiva. Very nice. A 20-year-old girl, she wants to marry a Rosh Yeshiva. Got it. So I asked her the question, if you find such a boy who's going to be learning Torah, will your father be able to help support the family?
Yeah.
She says, no, my father has no money.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So I said, did you go to school at least to get a degree? Maybe you're an OT, a PT, maybe you are a PA or a nurse, where you can make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. If you're making $80,000, your husband can sit and learn. She says, no, I don't believe in college. I didn't go to school at all. So I said to her, let me tell you reality. Reality is you're not going to marry a Rosh Hashiva. If you want something, you got to meet the guy halfway.
Yeah.
If your father can't support, then you've got to go out and get a job.
Yeah.
You know, if you tell me that you don't have any education, any job, nothing, that you're going to be making $10,000 a year, you're not going to marry a guy who's going to sit and learn. Because it says, Hokim Tokim Imo. It's got to be 50-50. You got to do something that shows it. So if you're interested in doing this, if this is the type of person you want, you've got to develop some needs. You've got to do something. Right.
Both of them can sit home
Right.
and do nothing.
Now, I have this all the time.
Yeah.
Someone comes to the house and knocks on the door, they're collecting money. My wife will give them $5, let's say. Is $5 a lot? No, but it's more. A lot of people give $1. You know, there could be 20 people a day that comes in. So she gives the guy $5. What does the guy say? I want more. So my wife wants to say, oh, you don't want the $5? No problem, thank you. Closes the door and says goodbye. I told this to somebody. Somebody says in their community it got so bad that what they do now is when someone comes to the door, they don't give them the money. They put the money in an envelope and they close the envelope. And they say here, and they just give him the envelope. And by the time he opens the envelope, he's already, you know, he doesn't open it right in front of you.
Yeah.
You close the door and that's it.
Whatever
You know?
is there.
So whatever's in the envelope, it's $2, it's $2. You give him an envelope. That's what they do.
Maybe this
And it may be empty, the envelope, I don't know.
That's a smart thing.
What?
That's smart.
Yeah, you know, on Purim time, people come around collecting money. And what I sometimes do is, what's the theme of Purim? Purim was the lottery, right? And Haman drew lots. So I sometimes will put money in envelopes. One has $1, one has $5, one has 10, maybe 120. And I'll put out the envelopes. I says, you take it, choose an envelope. Purim, it's lottery. If Hashem wants, you'll get the $20. If Hashem wants, he'll get you $1.
Yeah.
It's your, the money is there. Pick an envelope. Some find it cute. Some are not happy with what they find out. Some find it
One
cute.
empty one.
I should put one empty one also.
Next year you have to do
I don't know if I want to put one empty one.
it.
Listen to this. There was a great Rosh Hashiva in Europe, in Slobodka, called Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the altar from Slobodka. The word altar means the old one, the aged, you know, the elder from Slobodka. And he was known to be a big Baal Musar. Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the Rosh Hashiva of Mir, who passed away recently, was also Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, was named after him. So the altar from Slobodka probably lived 80 years ago. He brings down a fascinating story. Listen to this story. He says that he was once in the marketplace of Vilna, and there was a lady with a store selling different beans, different things. And somebody was opening up a store next to her, and she wasn't happy. And she starts screaming at the guy, yelling at him, and going meshuggah, going crazy, and using language that you can't believe. Totally lost it. All of a sudden, someone walks into the store and puts a few pennies on the table, whatever they are, not rubles, but pennies, and says, I want to buy a bag of peanuts or beans. All of a sudden, she turns around with a big smile, oh, so nice to see you, no problem, and picks up the bag and does everything else. And he's watching this. 5 seconds ago, you were a maniac screaming at the guy next to you, I'm going to kill you, I hate you, you're the most worst person in the world, how could you do this? A person gives you 3 or 4 pennies,
You're happy.
and all of a sudden, you're the nicest, the sweetest, the wonderful person. So he says, imagine, he says, a penny has the power to change a person from being angry to being nice.
Wow.
That's what he says. He says like, whoa, he says, wow. It's hard to imagine that just a few pennies can do that. Now we know this. You know, as guys we know this. Women don't understand. We know this. So when we mess up, we go and our wives don't want to talk to us, so we try to buy flowers and we try to spend a little bit of money to make things a little bit better.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we hope it works.
Most
You know, most of the time it works. So we know this lesson, that sometimes you have to spend a little to get shalom bayis. But he found that to be very, very interesting. He found that because, he talks about ki tetse l'mechama aloi vecho. A person has to go fight the enemy. Fight the enemy. And it's hard to imagine. He says, how do you fight this enemy? The Yetzer Hara takes you over, and sometimes you get angry, you lose control. But he said, the elder from the book says, you know what? Even when you're angry, a few pennies can make you the happiest person in the world. So it's very, very interesting. I heard a cute thing, I was watching it, one of the Rabbonim were saying it. A computer gets a virus. What happens? You're a computer guy, right? You're a computer savvy. What happens? A computer gets a virus.
Slow.
Doesn't work.
Stuck.
How do you know it has a virus? Because some of the programs stop working.
Yeah.
So someone said, very interesting. If you're from Williamsburg, you're Hasidish, and you talk about avidus, and you say it like a Hasidish Jew, what does it sound like? What other word does a virus sound like? No, averos. What are averos? Sins.
Yeah.
Sins. So a chosid would say, I did an avira. An avira means a sin. It sounds exactly like a virus, right? A virus and avira. So he says, well, let's see how they compare. When the computer tech comes to your house, and you say to them, my computer has a virus, a sins, right? It has a virus. The first thing the tech will tell you is, how come you don't have antivirus protection, right? How come you don't have protection? AVG, McAfee, Norton, right? Protection. What do we tell a Jew in Elul? Guy comes to me and says, Rabbi Bryks, I'm so afraid to do Averos. I say, well, you need protection. Go to a shiur, go online, go to a class, get a Rebbe, learn Torah. So the first thing we tell a Jew who's worried about doing Averos is get protection. The same thing a computer tech tells you about your computer. Now, what's next? Now after the computer tech tells you about all the protection you should have gotten and you didn't get, what's the next thing he has to do? He has to clean the system. He has to get rid of the virus. That's, what do we call that? Doing teshuvah. You have to clean yourself. You gotta go. You hear the shofar. You say slichot. We go for Rosh Hashanah. We fast. Yom Kippur. We gotta clean ourselves. Back to the computer. He told you about the protection. He cleaned the system. But you're still not happy because the virus cost you programs. We call that recovery. You gotta bring back. You gotta get what you lost. Isn't that what we do in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? After we know about protection, and after we do teshuvah, we want to come back to where we were. We were once on this level. When we did Aveirot, we dropped down to here. Now we want to get back to where we were. That's called recovery. So it's so interesting that the same way we deal with a computer and a virus, we deal with ourselves and Averos, the sins. So it's an interesting play on words. Not bad, right? Not bad.
Human like a computer, right?
Some of us have been accused of that. I can hear my wife echoing that sound. You're just a computer calculating, and I don't know if that's an insult. If computers had a bigger heart, maybe it wouldn't be such a big insult. Sometimes your wife will tell you you're a computer, which means you don't have enough feelings.
Compliment.
Not necessarily a compliment. But, that's a different story. Okay, let's go a little bit further. It says, a very interesting halacha. If a person commits a crime, and the punishment is death, and there are 4 ways they killed people in the olden days. Stoning, or a sword, or burning, or hanging, whatever it was. Well, not hanging, but, strangulation. So then it says, after they killed a person, they're supposed to hang the body up for everybody to see, but not for long. You take him down.
Yeah.
Why? Because people might point to the body and say, look, Hashem is hanging. Now that's an unusual term. Because, come on, we are created in the image of God. But Hashem doesn't have a head, doesn't wear a suit, doesn't have a tie, doesn't have hands, doesn't have legs. So you see a person hanging, you're not going to say Hashem is hanging. But that's what the Torah says. The Torah says, don't hang him for too long, because they're going to say, look, Hashem is hanging. So what do they explain? They explain that it's not that Hashem is hanging, but that a person has the ability to be godlike. That means people have choices. Every day you have a choice. Today you could be a good person, or you could be a bad person. Today you could help someone, or you can ignore someone. Today you could be kind, or you could be mean. So, because a person is created in the image of Hashem, and we believe Hashem is good, so when you see a person hanging, and you know he's hanging because he did Averos, you say, what a tragedy. That person could have been so good. And look what happened. He committed Averos, and now they had to kill him, and he's hanging. So it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. They bring down from Chaskel Levishti, one of the big mashgichim of Mir Yeshiva. He says, you know what is worse than a person who doesn't know his shortcomings, his failings? A person who doesn't know their good attributes, their ma'alot, their good deeds. He says, people walk around all day saying, I'm nothing, I'm no good, I hate my life. People say that. I'm not sure why, but people do. Even in the comic strips, they now quote people saying, no, I hate my life. And there are a lot of people who know what they can't do, but they have no clue of what they're capable of. They don't know what they're capable of. And that's a crime. Because if a person knew what they're capable of, they could do a lot of things. So it's important for a person to know not only their weaknesses, because trust me, everybody will let you know what your weaknesses are. That's never a secret. Everybody will tell you what you're no good at. The question is, what are you good at? You have to find out what you're good at, and you have to do that. And there are people who are good at different things. You enjoy music. It's something you're good at. Imagine what a tragedy would be if you didn't know you were good at it. How many lives that you have pleasured with your music, you would have been denied that pleasure because you don't think you're any good. But I'm glad you think you're good. So when people ask you to play, you say yes. Okay? So there are a lot of things that you're good at. You just have to figure out what it's good at. Okay? And when you know what it's good at, like this young man over here, tell me what you're good at. And don't tell me you're good at causing trouble, because that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's the best troublemaker.
But it's not such an easy question, right? You have to think about what you're good at, and then you've got to do that. If I ask you what you're not good at, you could probably say, I'm not good at singing, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at math. You could probably list 10 things you're not good at. It's unfortunate that you know so many things you're not good at, but you don't know what you're good at. And that's a crime.
For next week, for
and we're taping this. This is backwards now. We're watching you. You're going to be all over the video. Okay.
Next week we need answer.
Let's go a little bit further. Very interesting pasuk coming up. Listen to this pasuk. Okay? We read this pasuk before, but let's read it again. It says this pasuk. It says, someone loses something. So it says, V'im lo karav achicha elecho. Let's say your friend is not near you. You find something on the floor, a pen. You find a pen. And it's an expensive pen or an expensive watch. Now, you don't know who it belongs to. So you put up a sign, I found a watch. You don't give any description of the watch, because if the person comes to you and says, I lost my watch, so you ask him, great, what kind of a watch is it? No, is it a Seiko? Is it this? Is it that? But let's say no one claims the watch. 30 days, the sign is up, you put it in the newspaper, no one claims it. So it says, you have to keep it in your house. That means you put it in a drawer where it's safe. And how long do you have to keep it? Forever. Ad derosh achicha, until your friend comes and you return it back to him. So if it's something that there are no simanim, like money, we assume he gave up hope, you can keep it. But if it's something that he could identify, like a pen, like a watch, like any object, you have to make an announcement, I found this. If nobody claims it, you have to keep it forever, safe in the drawer until he comes back. Right? Unusual. And the Gemara talks about examples of someone who found, I think, beans, and then the beans grew, so he sold the beans for money, and then he bought chickens, and the chickens grew, and he bought goats, and by the time the guy came back, there was 100 goats or something. He says, here, take your beans, or whatever it was. Like, it was something bizarre. The Gemara talks about that. So, the Shalah HaKodesh, together with the Orach Chaim, he says something very interesting. He says the pasuk could be referring to people who go out and make people religious. And he says this is how you should read the pasuk. V'im lo karov achicha elecha. Your brother is not close to you. That means he doesn't keep Torah, doesn't keep mitzvahs. V'lo yadato, and he doesn't know Hashem. He doesn't know God. He doesn't know Hashem. So what do? You find a Jew who's not close to you and doesn't know God, doesn't know Torah, doesn't know mitzvahs. What do? Invite him into your house. Let him enjoy Shabbos with you. Let him enjoy the Chagim with you. Let him stay with you. Be friends with him. Until your friend wants to know more about him. He wants to know more about Hashem. And you'll bring him back to God. That's how he reads the pasuk. It's a fascinating Orach Chaim. He says, we're not talking about finding watches and pocketbooks and things of that nature. We are. But it has a deeper meaning. It's more important than that. He says, imagine you're in a shopping mall and you're with your child and all of a sudden your child gets lost. You go crazy. Where's my child? You come running around and scream his name. If someone finds him and brings him back to you, you're so thankful. Baruch Hashem, he's back. He says in Shamayim, Hashem is going crazy. So many Jews are off the path. And imagine, he says, imagine if you can bring one Jew back closer to Hashem, how happy Hashem will be. So he says, that's what the pasuk says. It's talking about bringing people closer to Hashem. It's talking about making people understand who Hashem is. Because if you can bring a person closer to Hashem, of course, he says, you'll make Hashem that much happier. So I found that to be a very, very, very nice pasuk. Okay. Lo yovo mamzer b'kahal Hashem. You okay?
Yeah.
Lo yovo mamzer b'kahal Hashem. A mamzer cannot marry a Jew. Okay? What is a mamzer? What is a mamzer? A mamzer is a child born from a woman who had a relationship with a close relative, or if she's married, had a relationship with another man. That's a mamzer. What does the word mamzer mean? So they're not sure what it means. One Pirush Ramban says mamzer comes from the word mizar, from a stranger. The child is born from a strange father, not his real father. Another opinion is mamzer is two words, mumzor, a strange blemish. That means the child has a blemish from outside. Now, who can a mamzer marry? Let's say, for whatever the reason, this child is born. Who can this child marry? Can't marry another Jew. So the child can marry another mamzer, or the child can marry someone who converts to Judaism. A ger, or a gioris. Okay.
Married to non-Jew.
Well, we don't encourage anybody to marry someone not Jewish, so they would marry someone who converts. There's other ways we do it, and I've done it, where a mamzer marries someone who he buys as a shifcha, and then the children are not mamzerim after that. The children are avadim, and then you make them free. There, you can get rid of the mamzer stigma.
But it's not going to be punished? This is not sin?
No, that's okay. The halacha brings that down. Now, let's say you're at a wedding, and you think that person getting married might be a mamzer. You have an obligation to stop the wedding.
Stop what?
Stop the wedding.
Wow.
If you rabbi,
Let's say you know a story, you see this girl up there, and you know her mother had an affair, and you think that girl came from that affair. Should you go to the rabbi and say, Rabbi, that person is a mamzer, and it's against the Torah to perform this wedding?
you must to stop the wedding.
So, if you know for a fact,
Exactly.
100%, you have to stop the wedding. But if you only know safek, you think, you're not sure.
Somebody
Halfway.
tell us something.
Right,
Yeah.
it's a story.
Should be proved, but
So even though it's a Torah law, and we always say safek of a Torah, we go lechumra, restrict. By mamzer, the halacha is safek mamzer and lahaka, we're lenient. By mamzer, we're lenient.
I'm sorry.
could you repeat again?
When you have a question if the person is a mamzer or not,
Okay.
we don't go lechumra, we're maker, we go lenient.
We make it, they make it the wedding.
You're allowed to make the wedding.
It's nice to present those.
Because the Gemara says mamzer vaday omarach mona v'lo safek mamzer. It's only 100% mamzer, not a doubtful mamzer. Why? Because if you think about it, the child, what avera did the child do?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's important. The punishment is on the child.
Yeah.
That the parents should behave better.
Yes.
But the child did nothing. So why is the child suffering? So the Gemara says that when Mashiach comes, anybody who's this mamzer, Hashem is going to take it away. He will no longer be a mamzer. Asini mamzerim litahir. The mamzer will become tahor in the future, not a problem. Now, the Torah says that even 10 generations can come. So the Meshech Chochmah, the Grub brings this down actually, the Vilna Gaon. He says, why does it say 10 generations? What difference does it make if it's 5 generations, 10 generations, 20 generations? He says it's interesting. 2 parents get married, they have a child. The child has the DNA 50-50. The grandchildren only have 25-25.
And go.
And it goes down. By 10 generations,
Zero.
you have less than 1,000.
Zero.
And most things are batel in 1,000. So I might think by 10 generations, whatever is there is 1,000th, one 1,000th is batel. So therefore the Torah says, no. Afilu be'elef lo batel. So it's interesting, afilu be'elef lo batel, but again, it's only if we know for a fact. If we only heard a story, then of course we don't care. Okay? Now you're not that involved. I'm involved because I know women who have gotten married without a get. So that's a problem, right? That creates a little bit of a problem. If a woman gets married without a get, she needs a get first. So there are problems that come up that that we deal with on a regular basis, but most people don't have any exposure to these type of situations.
Child mamzerim baby?
Yeah, most people. I know children who are. I know examples, and I keep a registry, so in case they ever come my way, I won't perform the wedding. But most people don't know. You wouldn't know.
There is not a mom there from only the male and female.
A mamzer can either be a boy or a girl. It's talking about a woman,
Huh?
a married woman, who has a relationship with a person, not her husband.
No,
So
this
that child could be a boy or girl, right?
No, he means if the man is married and she's not. So anyway, the boy
No,
doesn't.
if the man is married, he can have more than one wife according to the Torah.
So it's only from the woman.
Woman, yeah.
And you said when in the future when the Moshiach comes, he takes the mamzers, or
All the mamzers will become tahor. He'll remove it. The problem.
Oh, they're going to be
all will be regular.
Zero.
Because the truth is,
there's no punishment for that.
they didn't do anything wrong.
For child is no problem.
You know,
But
you
for
can.
mother,
What?
for mother when
The mother will have to do her teshuvah when she comes up to Shemayim. So I don't know what will happen when the mother comes up to Shemayim. And you know, you think about it, people ask the question, it's not fair. Why are we punishing the child?
Yes.
Right? It's not fair. Let me give you another example, okay? A mother is pregnant and she smokes crack cocaine.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the child?
Damage.
Damage. But it's no fair.
Child.
Who are you going to scream at now?
mother.
But it's no fair.
The child's gonna be.
But it's no fair. So we as parents have to know that sometimes we do things that hurt our children.
Yes.
Okay? Just because a child is born, a mamzer, and you can't see the problem, but there's a problem there. You just can't see it. You don't have the eyes to see it. But in Shemayim, there's a problem there.
Yeah, that's it.
It's no fair. You're right, it's no fair. But you can't change. Parents can affect their children.
Rabbi Bryks, last time I read the newspaper, one guy...
How long ago was that?
He's in about 1 week. 250 women. He stay in the line, he paid $10,000. He's a Jewish. All of them paid for $10,000. Just make from him the child. He want to bring the for a lot of in the world Jewish people.
So we're not talking about Ashley Madison now. Okay, we're not talking about Ashley
On the
Madison.
line.
Baruch Hashem.
10,000 each of them.
My name is not on Ashley Madison. I wasn't worried.
It's
I didn't even know what it was.
Someone
Someone asked me about it, and I didn't even know what it was. I had to look in the paper. I read about it. I didn't know what it was.
The
Okay.
point is, that child is coming to Mamzer, but he's Jewish. He wanted to do the kiddush, doesn't matter.
As long as the girl is not, he didn't have relations. If it was through a test tube, but Moshe says that's not a mamzer. The Satmar didn't agree with Moshe, but Moshe said it's not a mamzer.
Because most of them, the white and African American, Italian, on the line, but he's Jewish. He's a rich man in the hotel.
I see how rich he is. Okay. Next question. Next thing. It says, Lo yovo Ammoni Moavi b'kahal Hashem. Someone from Ammon and Moab cannot convert.
We come back to the
Why not? Why not? So the Torah says because when you were traveling in their country, they didn't greet you with food and water.
Say again?
When you were traveling in the desert and you were going by the land of Ammon and Moab,
Yeah.
you offered to buy food and water. They wouldn't give you any food or water.
Why?
Why not? They didn't want it. They didn't like it. So why does that make them no longer able to convert?
Yeah.
Because Ammon and Moab are descendants from which person? Lot, right? And Lot should have had Hakarat HaTov to Avraham Avinu.
Yeah. He helped.
And he should have told that to his children. So he did it. So his children grew up thinking we owe the Jewish people nothing. So Hashem says, if you can't say thank you to the Jewish people, you cannot be part of the Jewish people. So then comes the next question. Who says they didn't want to give food and water? Maybe they were poor
Yeah.
and they couldn't afford to give
Yeah,
food and
how-
water. You know, not everybody has extra money to give food and water. So the Torah says, and they also hired Bilam ben Ma'ar to curse you.
Oh, below.
And Bilam came, was he cheap?
No, not rich.
You had money for that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Good money.
He
You know,
costs, yeah.
in court, a man has an attorney costs $600 an hour. He says to the judge, I have no money to give for child support.
Yes. But he
You
has
know what the judge says? You have $600 an hour for your lawyer.
Yes.
Get a cheaper lawyer. Get a lawyer for $300 an hour and give $300 a month to your child. You know? That's what the judge will say. If you can afford this, you can afford this.
You gotta be.
Common sense.
You gotta prepare it.
Common sense, right?
Because George is very tough today.
Correct. So it says, the Torah says they cannot convert. Why? Because they didn't feed you food and water.
The meat.
And then it says, and they hired Bilam. So you have to make the connection. Okay. What about women from Ammon and Moab? Can they convert to Judaism?
Allowed.
They're allowed. We know that because Rus converted. So the Gemara says, women did not serve food and water. In those days, women stayed home. They didn't go out to serve food and water.
Only men.
Only the men.
Why they
Today
cook?
it's different.
Why they cook or what?
Yeah, they use a term called kavoda bas melech penimo. A woman's sniyut is that she should stay home. Just like Avraham served the angels. They asked Avraham, who made the food? Sarah. Where is Sarah? She's in the tent. Why is she not serving? Not sniyut.
Okay.
The Gemara says, how do we know women have sniyut? The Gemara says because they were created from a hidden part of Adam Arishon.
Yeah.
So the part that they were created from was hidden. So they have in their nature sniyut. Women tend to be more modest than men.
Sniyut.
Now, sniyut means modest.
Modest.
And a little bit more, they dress more modestly. Now, you live in America today, if you go to Times Square, you would not have that impression.
Oh, you're getting worse and worse every day.
I wouldn't know.
Especially nowadays.
Are you talking about from what you hear or from what you know?
Well, what you hear?
I heard that.
You see, having things on tape 2 weeks before Rosh
I heard that radio
Hashanah
today
makes you
also.
honest, right? What?
I heard today also about what's the mayor's name?
De Blasio?
Yeah, about the ladies.
I don't know. I just read about.
They picture them
Yeah,
and they make money on it, and a lot of people they don't want it. They're still doing it.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say to you is that you wouldn't know it today, but the Gemara says "Kol the bas melech penima," that the women of Ammon and Moab, they were tznuah, they were modest, even though that was not our experience. Because remember, it was the girls of Midian and Moab who made the Jews sin by Zimri ben Solu and Cosby Basur, with Pinchas. So it's not so simple that that these people are modest.
Yeah.
Logic says our experience is different. But the truth is, there was only a small group that went out. The vast majority were modest. And therefore, the Torah does not hold them responsible. The Torah says it wasn't up to you to go out and feed the Jewish people. Your husband should have done it. You prepared the food, gave it to your husbands wouldn't do it. So your husbands cannot convert. So it's a very interesting thing, because in order to be a Jew, a person has to be a rachamim, has to have compassion. If a person doesn't have compassion, they lack rachamim. Now, I want to share with you a story. Listen to this story. I'm just watching the time. I want you to listen to this story. This story was on an Israeli radio with an interview with Rabbi Moshe ben Lulu. Now, I said the story yesterday, and someone in this year says, yeah, I listened to that radio station. It's an Israeli radio station that you can hear in America. And he knew this Moshe ben Lulu as one of the radio announcers. Listen to this story. This year was a Shemitah year. Okay?
7 years.
7 years. This was a Shemitah year. So not this year, but last year, December, January, February, there was a group of rabbis and people from Bnei Brak that wanted to cut wheat to make matzahs for Pesach. And that's what they do. They cut wheat for shmur matzah. They have to make matzah. But they knew this year was a Shemitah year. So they were looking for a field that had late growing wheat that they could cut last year so they could put it in storage, so we should have matzahs for this year. Because this year, where are you going to get wheat from? It's Shemitah, you can't buy wheat. So they had to, 2 years ago, they had to cut the wheat for this year.
Wow.
So they looked all over Israel, and near a kibbutz called Kibbutz Shufa, which was right near the Gaza border, near Gaza, they found 2,000 dunam, which is 500 acres of green wheat planted mid-January, very unusual, perfect for what they were looking for. The problem is, that's when the Gaza war was starting, and they had a bunch of rabbis and yeshiva guys cutting wheat right along the Gaza border. Now the army said, we can help you, but we can't guarantee you and we can't protect you. We can't, but they cut the wheat all of January, February in clear sight of the artillery barrage of Gaza. Okay? And like he says, kids, don't do this at home. Don't cut wheat near guns that are pointed at you. Then he says something fascinating. And I remember the story, and you'll remember the story. If you remember, in the middle of the Gaza complex, there was a tunnel that came out of Gaza in the middle of a field that opened up a door, and terrorists came out. 13 terrorists. And the Israelis caught them and shot them. They got caught. Because the minute they came out, they were seen. He says, the reporter says, this tunnel was right in the middle of the field. The Gaza Arabs thought they could sneak out because the wheat was high. No one would see them.
They cut the wheat.
But they cut the wheat. The day before, they cut the wheat. So they came out the next day thinking they would be protected. But because these people from Bnei Brak cut the wheat, they opened the door, they came out, they were open, exposed. Boom, they were caught.
Wow.
They were shot and they were caught. So this reporter says that we don't know how many hundreds of Jews were saved, lives were saved, because a bunch of religious Bnei Brak people came to cut wheat
To the matzah
for next Pesach during Shemitah year.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. So the story was printed up, and it was an interview with this Rabbi Moshe Ben Lulu. It's fascinating.
Connected.
As the terrorists emerged from the tunnel, the army opened fire, saving many Jewish lives by the grace of Hashem. Ki tetse lemilchama al oivecha. He says, sometimes, truth is stranger than fiction. You can't make this stuff up.
But it's anyway, thank God that God showed some way.
It's unbelievable, he says. It happened in such a way that it could happen. Okay, one last question. It's already 9:25, 9:26.
One question.
Yes.
The Moab and Moab.
Ammon and Moab.
Amalek.
They generation come like a mountain because
I'm trying to understand your question.
Lot was have a relationship with the daughter.
Right, no, that was before the Torah was given, and it was for non-Jews. It doesn't apply. Okay, listen to this question. A person does a apartment swap, let's say. You have friends down in Florida, and when they come to New York, they stay by you, so you went down like a timeshare. You go down to Florida, and you don't rent, but let's say you rent their apartment. Now when you rent, no matter what damage happens, you're responsible. So you're renting their apartment, and they have a beautiful backyard, and they have a table, a patio. All of a sudden, a wind comes, like a hurricane wind. And the table in the backyard is sucked up, goes flying through the air into the neighbor's yard, and smashes the car of the neighbor. Who's responsible?
We'll win.
So the wind is responsible, but you're renting the place. And the rule is, if you rent, you're responsible for all damages. So the short answer is, if it was a normal wind, then you're responsible. Because whatever happens is your responsibility. But if it was a type of a wind that was not normal, that you could not have anticipated,
You can control.
you couldn't control it, it was like bizarre, you're not responsible. Of course, it's a little bit more complicated because there are hurricane warnings. So if you're down in Florida and you're renting a place and you hear on the radio there's a hurricane warning,
You have to protect.
you got to protect. You got to take the table in. You don't leave the table outside. You have to do what you have to do to protect the property. So if you heard about the warning and you did nothing to protect,
Your fault.
still your fault. Okay? It's only if you never knew about it, if it was impossible to know about it, maybe then you'd be patur. You know, like you had over here, it was a while ago, we had in Queens a tornado,
Oh yeah.
right? There was no way to protect yourself for that.
A lot of trees go down.
A lot of trees.
Yeah.
So if you happen to be renting a property and a tree came down and it damaged your neighbor, and the owner says, hey, you're renting, it's your responsibility, it's not your responsibility. Because there was no way you could have known about it. It was impossible.
This is unbelievable.
It just came
News
quickly.
Don't tell about
The news
it.
didn't know. There was no warning. So there's no warning, you can't protect yourself. But if you have a warning, like Sandy, Hurricane Sandy's coming, and you know about it, so you know,
Sandy, yeah.
move your car. Don't let your cars be. You know,
Yeah,
people left their
people
cars
go
there. The
out,
cars
yeah.
were destroyed.
Yeah.
Get your car out. Move to an area. You have responsibilities. Okay. Have a good night, everybody.
Dag bara.
Thank you very much.
Emir Hashem. Next week we're